What would Fess Fuller, the founder of Ashton and Ashton Schools, think of the beautiful new North Fremont High School? I'm sure he'd be impressed, to say the least. When he first came to the Ashton area as a young, unmarried schoolteacher from Pennsylvania, the only school in Ashton was a one-room log cabin. He had established a life in St. Anthony as a teacher for several years, and then decided to go into the real estate business with a fellow teacher, C.C. Moore. They formed a business partnership that lasted 51 years until Fuller's death in 1954. C.C. Moore was later to become the governor of Idaho. Pictures show H.G., or Fess, as his associates and friends knew him. He lived and served from his home on Idaho Street all his life, and the home still stands on that street today. With the Oregon Short Line Railroad pushing towards Yellowstone Park, C.C. Moore and Fuller saw an opportunity. Together, in their real estate business and with a dozen or so other investors, they bought 640 acres of land 2 miles west of the village of Marysville from area settlers. Surveyors plotted out the town site based on an 1881 survey done by the Oregon Short Line Railroad. The village was named after an engineer of the railroad line. The engineer's name was William Ashton. As an educator himself, Fuller certainly saw the need for a good education in the village he and his business partner C.C. Moore were creating. Early on, they began raising $15,000, an enormous sum of money in 1906, to build a state-of-the-art school for the village of Ashton. Idaho had become a territory in 1863 and gained statehood on July 3, 1890. With Idaho becoming a state came the responsibility of educating its children. Each county had an elected county superintendent whose responsibility it was to oversee all of the schools within each county. Schools in Fremont County and throughout the state were originally in the homes of the first settlers in the area. As the number of families and children increased, a log building was usually constructed to be used as a school. Because of transportation, which consisted of walking, skiing, riding a horse, or in a buggy, schools were constructed about 6 miles apart from each other so that the students would not have to travel more than 3 miles to get to school. Families were looking for good, fertile ground or just a new place to live. Because of the Homestead Act, land came free to these early settlers. But much labor was still required to establish homes, farms, and eventually communities. There were at least 20 of them: Drummond, Squirrel, Farnham, France, Grainville, Green Timber, Warm River, Henry's Lake, Max Inn, Harris, Highland, Horseshoe Flats, Hugginsville, Lamont, Lillian, Lodi, Marysville, New Hope, Ora, Rice, Cerilda, Sand Creek, Upper Sand Creek, and Vernon. Schools were established in most of these communities. Pictures show some of the outlying schools around the Ashton area. Some of the pupils at these various schools are pictured as well. Later, these schools would be consolidated into the Ashton School District so students would come to Ashton for schooling. Some stayed in operation as late as the 1950s. In 1891, the first school in Ashton area was located north of Ashton, presumably in someone's home. A log building was constructed north of Ashton in 1895 and combined with the Harris School and became known as the Lodi School. The first school in Ashton may have been located about a mile from the site of the old North Fremont High building on Main Street. It was called the Ashton Common School. At this time, the school was considered Ashton Common School District number 47. This school was used until 1906, when a two-story brick building with a basement was built on the approximate site of the present Ashton Elementary School building. This was a state-of-the-art building, housing 4 to 6 classrooms, a janitorial living area, and a dining area for rural students. Remember, it cost $15,000 to build in 1906. It was built rapidly and opened its doors for classes on December 1st, 1906, only 6 months after Ashton had been incorporated as a village. The janitorial living area was in the west end of the hallway on the second floor. It was occupied by Earl George Kerstetter, who was hired in July 1924 and resided there with his family until the building burned in 1928. Kirk, as he was affectionately known, worked as a custodian in the Ashton schools for 36 years. He always did his work to the best of his ability and was very helpful to all those around him. Due to his dedication to the Ashton schools, the local football field at the old North Fremont High School on Main Street was named Kirk's Field. The course of study at the Ashton Public School eventually consisted of a grammar school and 2 years of high school work. In 1915, a 3-story high school building was constructed south of the elementary building, and the course of study was expanded. There was an approximate enrollment of 224 students in grades 1 through 12 at this time. Because of circumstances of the times, not many students went on to high school, even though the village of Ashton was booming and had scheduled passenger trains arriving daily. Businesses sprang up by the dozen. In 1910, only 4 years after the town's incorporation, the Ashton Business Directory listed, among others, 2 banks, a grocery store, a meat market, 2 plumbers, several lumber and hardware stores, 2 telephone companies, a furniture company, jewelry stores, boarding houses, a cafe, a theater, a livery stable, a blacksmith, barbershops, a pool hall, a pharmacy, and a newspaper. Ashton even boasted its own town physician. Edward L. Hargis, fresh from medical school in the eastern United States, was scheduled to open an office in St. Anthony. He came on the train and for some reason decided to ride to the end of the line in Ashton. Word got around that a doctor had arrived but was scheduled to leave on the next train. "Quick! Somebody find somebody that's sick so's we can keep him here," somebody hollered. Unable to find anyone really sick in such a short time, another Ashton resident volunteered to take to his bed with moans and groans. The doctor was summoned. By the time the doctor diagnosed his case, enough legitimately sick people had been found to make him forget about moving on. The $3 Dr. Hargis charged for that first visit was well worth the investment. Doc Hargis, as he was known to the locals, brought his parents, 2 brothers, and a sister to join him in Ashton. He spent the rest of his life in the community. While he and his wife Verda Lowe had no children of their own, he could rightfully claim the title Father of Ashton, with the delivery of more than 4,300 babies during his several decades of medical practice in Ashton. Main Street at this time was a dirt road, and the sidewalks were made of boards. But that doesn't mean Ashton wasn't busy. The town bustled with activity, and people dressed up when they came to town. Ashton was a happening place. One of the first town slogans was, "Keep your eye on Ashton." Some of the first buildings included the Oddfellows Hall, now on the National Registry of Historic Buildings, the Cannon Building, which later housed the IGA grocery store, and the Hotel Ashton. The first class to graduate from Ashton High School graduated in 1915, and the lone graduate was Gail Mercer. In 1916, the lone graduate was Allie Anderson. In 1917, there were two graduates, Mary Schroll Beckstead and Rosebud Henry Rogers. Rosebud. Now there's a name to give your firstborn son. It is interesting to note that the class of 1918 gave the first junior prom in honor of the two graduates of 1917. Also, when the graduating class of 1918 started high school as freshmen, there were 10 of them. At that time, there were only 13 students in the whole high school. 6 students of the 10 graduated in the class of 1918. As more stability came to the area, the number of students attending high school and graduating increased over a period of time. In talking with some of the old-timers of Ashton High School, it was interesting to note that people in town and even in rural areas, some as far away as Marysville, walked to school. This took place in and up through the 1940s. Remember, Marysville was a couple of miles away. Students also rode horses to school. There was a barn out back behind the high school where students could tether their horses. Students from rural areas were also transported to school in covered wagons, or in winter in covered sleighs driven by local residents. Students went to school in all weather conditions. Remember our 30-degree below zero mornings in January and the snow piled up in town? There were no snow closures in those days. Snow closures only came after the schools began using the yellow buses to transport students. Note the picture of Cliff Paskett, a lifelong Ashton resident and now over 100 years old, with the yellow bus that he drove. In 1924, there were 18 seniors who graduated. Mr. David L. McClune was the principal, followed by Mr. R.R. Bell in 1927. In 1926, the Ashton football team beat Ricks College by a score of 8-6. Mr. Milton D. Snodgrass, superintendent of Ashton schools, was also the football coach. The class of 1924 was responsible for the first yearbook. It was called the Yellowstone Eagle and was published yearly until 1930, when the yearbook was named the Derby. There were several years in the 1930s when the yearbook was not published due to the Depression and hard times. Marion Rice, a 1936 graduate of Ashton High School, recalled the impact of the Depression.
I'll always remember this story. My mother had gone to the beauty shop to have a Marcel.
I remember those.
And when she was finished, she pulled out her checkbook to pay for it. And the operator said, "I'm sorry, we can't take your check because the bank is closed."
That would have been a shocker.
Just, that was such a minor thing, and yet it
told the story
in my
didn't
memory, because it hit my family.
Yeah.
And
the old Ashton Public School elementary building was occupied until the Sunday before Thanksgiving 1928, when it burnt down. The elementary students housed in this building were moved to the high school gymnasium, which was partitioned off by curtains into rooms to accommodate those students from the burnt elementary school.
This building burned down, and
It was Thanksgiving in 1928.
I was in the 3rd grade, and
Were you one of the people that had to go down into the gym?
so they made classrooms down in the gym.
Yeah, I
And
read
that's
about
our-
that.
Yeah.
They put up curtains or something, or separated it.
They had kind of makeshift walls that separated the classes.
Must have been like
but
a
I think
prison
there
down
were-
there. I would think it was so dark when I was in school down there. We'd go play ball or something down in there, and it was so dark and scary down there, you know. But
So, we had no place for games, or I think the only place we ever went to play games was in the old opera house.
oh, and it was used a lot, wasn't it, for dances and sports and stuff?
Graduation and
Leo Hammond, class of 1931, and a student janitor at the school, remembers the fire that burnt the elementary building. He was thankful that if the school had to burn down, it happened on a Sunday, and no blame could be put on him because he worked last Friday. The basketball team practiced and played their games in the Opera House until approximately 1932, and a new 2-story addition was built on the north end of the 3-story Ashton High School building, which served the Ashton community until consolidation of the outlying areas became effective. Mr. Fred G. Brady was principal of Ashton Schools at this time. He held this position until 1935, when he became superintendent. He retired from the public schools in 1943 and then continued serving the schools as a school board member. Student enrollment grew, and more people were graduating from high school in Ashton. Pictures here show some of those faces of the past. As you watch some of these faces of the past, a funny story of the time comes to mind. It went as follows. Several boy members of the class of 1939, as a practical joke, put several milk cows on the first floor of the high school and the elementary building one night. When the janitor, Mr. Kirkstetter, came to school the next morning, the school was a mess. He turned on the fire hose to flush the mess out, and in the process of drying, parts of the hardwood floor buckled and had to be replaced. The boys had to work at the school the next summer until they earned enough money to pay for the damage. Mr. James V. Lacey was principal of Ashton Schools at the time of the cow incident. It seems the students may have had it in for Principal Lacey. Another story of this time is that some friends staged a circle of guys standing around shouting, "Go for him! Get him!" as if there were a rough and tumble fight going on within the circle. Principal Lacey came running out of the building and into the group to break up the so-called fight. Breaking through the crowd of young men, he found himself alone in the circle of the boys, the brunt of their joke. Sounds like boys will be boys, doesn't it? Bud Swanstrom, class of 1942, remembers the outstanding athlete program during his senior year. The football team was district champions and played such schools as Rigby, Madison, and Shelley, to name a few. He recalls playing Driggs in a cow pasture and stated that because of the smell and appearance, the cows must have been moved from the pasture the morning of the game. Pictured here is the original football field, which is directly east of the present-day Ashton Elementary School. There are some pictures of that field then and now. It's interesting to note that Ashton always played St. Anthony football on November 11th, Armistice Day. It was a long-time tradition. Ashton was not in a league back then as they are today. In 1947, the Idaho legislature passed a law to reorganize school districts throughout the state to make them more efficient and economical. At this time, Fremont County was divided into 21 districts, of which approximately one-half were in the Ashton area. A committee made up of representatives from each district was formed to reorganize the Fremont County districts. After meetings and hearing the concerns of all the districts, an election was held on February 20th, 1948, to form one consolidated district in Fremont County. The results of the election were in favor, and so Fremont County Joint School District A215 was formed. The consolidation of the outlying areas with the Ashton School involved the building of a new high school and agricultural shop in town. The site was furnished by the city and was across the highway north of the then existing elementary and high school building. Bids were let out in the spring of 1950, and the building was finished and officially accepted by the Board of Trustees on August 20th, 1951, at a cost of $314,432. The first students enrolled in the school in the fall of 1951, and the first graduating class graduated in the spring of 1952. I was able to talk to Dick Seeley, who was a sophomore when the school opened in 1951, and later he became the principal from 1983 till 1997. He had this to say about the building.
And but I just liked the atmosphere of it. It was nice to know that I could be principal in the same building that I went to school in. See, I moved into that school when I was a sophomore, and
Where did you go before that?
over at the old high school
Oh,
across the street. But when they built the new one, I was a sophomore in high school, and I could not believe that building at the time. All the typewriters you'd ever want to use to type, home ec room with stoves.
The old high school building continued to be used. The first floor housed the elementary school. The second floor housed the junior high. For a period of time, junior high was actually held in the North Fremont High School building, but was later returned to the old building. The third floor of the old building was eventually cordoned off and not used. Need for additional rooms and a deteriorating 1932 building made it necessary to build an addition to the north side of the existing elementary building. The addition housed students in the fall of 1965, and less of the older building was occupied. According to Joanne Richards Anderson, class of 1959, the first and second grade teachers, Jolene Parkinson, Ruth Jenkins, Fern Stewart, Lois Reynolds, Gertrude Gifford, and Bonnie Summers decided to have their students do an operetta. The first operetta was Land of Dreams Come True, a story about Mother Gooseland. It was performed in 1959 in the old white LDS church, where the students had to carry their own chairs back and forth from the school. Later, it was held in the auditorium at the high school. They continue to be held every other year, so the children are either first or second graders. Tamarasi Kaitonga, class of 1969, wrote 3 of the operettas. One was written and performed to celebrate Idaho's centennial and was attended by Governor Cecil Andrus. This long-standing tradition provides wonderful memories for students. You know, it's completely conceivable that if you look closely at these pictures, you may find yourself in one of them, dancing your way into the hearts of millions. The next major building project to the schools was the addition of 4 classrooms, an auditorium, and a band room on the east side of the existing high school gymnasium. The project was completed in October 1974. The 7th and 8th grades moved from the old Ashton Elementary School building to the new classrooms, making North Fremont High School a 7th through 12th grade facility. The old Ashton Elementary building was demolished beginning in March of 1974. The demolition rubble was buried in a pond on Gus Steinman's farmland south of town. Classes commenced in the new portion in the fall of 1974. On March 20th, 1985, bids were accepted for additional construction of elementary classrooms and updated dressing rooms at the high school. The elementary building, as it is today, is located on the same plot as the old 1915 high school. Construction, as needed, has taken place over the years to keep and maintain a preschool, K-6 facility that the community can be proud of. High school academic and extracurricular successes continued through the 1980s and 1990s. June Missildine, high school secretary from 1970 to 1991, remembers the principals that she worked with. June always enjoyed the fact that she could easily train them for their new positions. She had the uncanny ability to be friends with students, teachers, and parents, but at the same time commanded and received respect from them all. I had a brief chat with June recently and asked her what she liked most about working at the school.
What did you like working there? And
I did. I loved the kids. They were always so fun.
And like just the interaction with them. That's what I enjoy where I teach too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things have changed about teaching in the 37 years I've taught, but the kids I still enjoy working with. And
I always had girls, well, boys also.
That were TAs for you.
That helped in the office, and
they run your messages and stuff for you and stuff like that.
In the early 1990s, long-distance learning via closed-circuit television was offered at North Fremont High School and served students and patrons who desired to further their education by gaining college credits. At this time, The high school curriculum also offered advanced placement college credits to interested senior students. Many seniors earned a semester of college credit while still in high school. Appreciation needs to be shown to Miss Margaret Howe, who taught AP Calculus, Mrs. Lynn Sharp, who taught AP Spanish, and Mr. Richard E. May, who taught AP English. They were truly dedicated teachers. In the early 1980s and on, it became apparent that the infrastructure of the existing high school built in 1950 and 51 was becoming antiquated and inadequate to give students the technological education that they needed to succeed in life after graduation. The need came to upgrade the existing facility or to build a more modern high school. It was decided a new facility would be more appropriate. Construction on the new high school started in the summer of 2001 at a cost of $9.4 million and was finished so that the first students entered the new school in the fall of 2004. It is located immediately east of Ashton on Highway 47. The community is very proud of the new facility. And now, here's a little bit of then, a little bit of later, and a little bit of now. This is a collection of pictures of things over the years and is in no means complete. We hope you enjoy, and we hope you'll enjoy hearing a little bit more from Dick Seeley and Marion Rice.
Did you have long days?
Yes, I did. I used to try to attend all activities.
Now, were you alone or did you have a vice principal?
I had a vice principal, but I like to be where the kids were, and so like in
June said she had to she gated a lot of the activities, so she said she spent a lot of time
Yes, she
having
did.
to do that too.
Yes, and
I think it means a lot to the kids when you're there.
it does. It does. It means a lot to them, and as a professional, I think I need to be where the kids are, and so I spend a lot of time. I usually come home and had supper, and if the kids wanted to go back to a ball game or something, why we all went as a family, you know, or else they stayed home and studied or whatever they had to do. But there are things that I don't know what I would cope with, but I still miss them.
Did you ever have anything happen to you at the school that was like, you know, just funny and as an afterthought, maybe at the time something didn't seem right, but then later on it was a good story to tell, or, you know?
There was more than once that I would have a child in the office, and I would have to get up and leave because I had to laugh. And one that really sticks out in my mind. The bus driver brought a student in to the office because he had called him a swear word. And I said to the boy, after I talked to him, I says, "Don't you like the bus driver, and he said no. And he says, and I don't like the principals either.
You probably knew exactly how he felt too, didn't you? I mean,
Rather than busting out laughing right in front of him, I had to get out and go out in the office where June was, and
do you remember how old he was? Was he?
he was a sophomore in high school.
Huh? Now, as I told you, I wrestled in high school, and talk about wrestling's been pretty pretty steady at the school, hasn't it? I mean,
Yes.
it's been a very, where they've won a lot, and
Wrestling, excuse me, wrestling has probably been the most, what do I want to say, the most successful sports program that we've had over the years.
well, you know, my dad in the 40s boxed, and I think Dick Clark did too, and it was very popular back then, and I think they
Boxing
did well.
was very popular then. There was, I remember when I was a freshman, boxing was taken out of the school. I was a freshman in high school. And,
Thought it was too dangerous, maybe, or
I think so. I'm not sure why it was taken out, but I started boxing when I was a freshman, and then they stopped it. And that's
so you liked doing that? My
I-
dad loves it,
I would have liked to have been a boxer, but
but they didn't have it.
they
huh?
didn't have it. Just my freshman year. But there was some good boxers that come out of this town.
Do you have any history on that at the school?
While I was there, and as principal, we had just the one foreign language, Spanish. But you could take 4 years of Spanish and get college credit.
When I was in school, we had French, and we had 3 French teachers in one semester because they kept leaving, and Mrs. Van Dusen took it over, and I think she was one lesson ahead of us in the book. And we used to go to the library for it. It was funny.
And Mrs. Sharp was the Spanish teacher, and she was excellent. And she would take kids to
Did she teach
Mexico
art
each
too?
yes. she
Because
taught-
June talked about her yesterday and spoke really highly of her.
Yes,
I said, was there anybody you really missed when she's gone? And she said, Lynn Sharp. I missed her. She
Yes.
liked her.
She was an excellent teacher.
So I have great memories of that building. We did a dance one year. Our class had a dance, and we made the hallways look like streets. We had street signs and a dotted line. It was awkward, but we had great fun coming up with the idea.
Right.
Tell me about, now I haven't been able to find a lot of pictures of dances, but when I was in school, we'd have these enormous crepe paper tents in the gymnasium. We would put string wires, and then they would raise the crepe paper and walls, and be creative with whatever way to get into the junior prom or the senior ball. And Margaret tells me that after she left, that kind of went by the wayside. And we also had live music for those formal dances. And was that, did you see that?
When I was there, the formal dances like the junior prom, the senior ball, we had elaborate decorations. We would spend a long time decorating those, from the ceilings of the gym and the walls and everything. But the thing that I find that's different now in talking to kids, when I went to the junior prom and everybody else, you usually dance the first dance with your partner. that you brought, the middle dance, and the last dance. And you had a card.
You filled it out.
You filled it out with who you're going to dance with.
My mother's generation did that too.
And but now I think they dance with the same person all night long.
Well, and they like record dances. They have a DJ come, and they don't have the live music either.
Yeah, we used to have a school orchestra. I think the most satisfaction I got was from the kids. The kids in this town are phenomenal, and I'm very serious when I say that.
And what do you mean by that? What in what sense?
They are well behaved. Their mannerisms can't be beat. They're just
good people.
Good people, and I attribute that to their parents and their upbringing. There was very few times that I felt pressure over here as principal because of that. There
few discipline problems.
few discipline problems. Like
That's a blessing, isn't it? Really,
it is a blessing.
Work ethic is good. I think in a rural community, the kids know how to work, and
that's just what I was going to say about kids here. And I think that carries over into your social life or what is your work ethic. And kids around here seem to have that, whether it was their studies or whatever.
they knew how to work hard.
They knew how to work and how to do it. And there was a lot of them when their studies come around. They didn't study as much as they should have. But very few kids ever went to this high school and never graduated.
So you had a high graduating rate.
Oh yes, we had a very high graduating rate. Very
Because
high.
nationwide, it's still kind of scary.
It's scary, but we never felt that here. We had a very high graduation rate, and I attribute it to the family. It's just they're just solid families here,
That's good.
and like you were talking about, they want to come back here. There's a lot of people that would come back here if jobs were available.
Yeah.
But
That's the greatest cry, isn't it? I mean, from people you hear they'd like to come back, but there aren't work opportunities for them. What drew you ultimately to education?
I think probably one teacher that I had did that.
Was that somebody here at school?
Yes.
Who was that?
It was Mr. Wilson Walker. He caught me leaving class one time. He was downstairs in the basement of the old high school. He had told me not to come back till I brought my dad with me. I didn't want my dad to come to school. And so the next day I went down and I humbled myself in front of that man and told him that I'd like to take care of my own problems rather than having my dad there. And he did, or we did. We took care of it. And that carried a lot over into when I was the principal. If kids could settle their own problems, I liked that. Without involving a lot of other people.
Yeah.
And so I have to say he taught me a lesson, and he was one of my favorite teachers.
Did you have a favorite grade school teacher? Did you have somebody that you particularly liked when you were in grade school?
My favorite teacher was Ingrid Clamp. She was just such an outgoing person, and she made you feel like you were kind of important, that she took an interest in us.
When asked to make this video for the celebration, I was somewhat reluctant because I've been away from home for so many years. Notice I said home. A lot has happened in Ashton in the past 44 years. But interestingly enough, whenever people ask me where I'm from, I always tell them, I'm from Ashton, Idaho. I was delighted to find that that is a very common answer from people who were raised here. It is home. I asked many people from Ashton on the journey it took to put together this presentation what they liked best about Ashton. Their answer? The people. It's the people. And of course, secondly, the absolute beauty of the place. A world travel guide I met in Tahiti after answering where I was from said, "I've been all over the world, but that place has the bluest skies, the clearest water, and the most beautiful mountains I've ever seen." It has been my honor to visit with some of Ashton's finest residents, read the histories and stories, and peruse through hundreds of photos as I've put together this presentation. I say it's an honor because it's allowed me to reminisce about my own experiences growing up in Ashton and in attending its schools. I've remembered wonderful teachers, custodians, bus drivers, and lunch ladies who gave us so much of their lives to nurture and care for hundreds of students through the years. I remember so many of the elementary school teachers, like Irma Lou McCulloch, who read wonderful stories to us. I can still see her face as she finished the book Houdini and closed the cover with such a look of satisfaction. Or remember the music that was a part of our lives. Mrs. Barr, who taught us to sing strange and wonderful songs, in German no less. Or Mrs. Bainbridge, who could play anything at the drop of a hat. Or how about Mrs. Reynolds and Mrs. Brower, who were the fashionistas of their day? So many of our high school teachers guided our own career paths. Many have gone on to noteworthy occupations because of the examples set by our teachers. The story is told of Suzanne Lyon Hamilton, who was directly influenced by Wally Johnson to obtain not one, but 2 English degrees. She herself has taught at North Fremont High in the very room Mr. Johnson taught her. One day, Mr. Johnson poked his head into his and her classroom on a visit, and she introduced him to her class. Students who had never met but had heard Mrs. Hamilton's stories of him stood and applauded him. Coaches like Joe Foster, Dave Lalonde, Wally Swatchek, and many others were instrumental in guiding kids, not only on the football field and the basketball court, but in the classrooms as well, presenting opportunities that made us stretch and challenge ourselves. Encouragement and humor came from those who cleaned our halls and fed us well. Where in the world could a student eat Frank Hemming's homemade bread every day and with honey butter on Fridays? Pats on the back from Kirk, Reed Murdoch, Clem Robinson, or the gentle kindness of the Eidingers came only from their wonderful hearts and their love for us. As we ponder the work of Fess Fuller, who, as memory serves many who knew him, would rev up his car's motor every morning until the whole neighborhood was awake, and as he brought to work daily his educational goals and dreams for this town, let us not forget. Keep taking pictures, keep writing, and share your stories. Keep talking with the Ashton old-timers and bask in their wisdom and history. And let's share all of what we learn with each new Ashton generation.